This is the Roller Coaster Podcast. We are here to help you be empowered and renew your sense of purpose as a midlife mom. This is your time to redefine and reclaim your power as a woman. Just because our kids are getting older doesn't mean that our lives still don't have crazy twists, turns, ups and downs. And that's not to mention what our hormones are doing. We're navigating helping our kids plan their next chapters while quietly wondering, what the heck does my next chapter look like? My name is Lucy Q, wife, mom, podcaster, and journaling mentor. This is a crazy time in your life, but you are not alone. So I'm inviting you to throw your head back, arms in the air, and come along with me for the ride.
Life is like a roller coaster, baby, baby. I wanna ride, 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 ride. Roller coaster. Life is like.
This has been the big question that I've seen going around lately, and it all has to do with a certain person being on the cover of a certain magazine. And definitely Sports Illustrated has stirred up an awful lot of controversy in the midlife community. And while some women are cheering Martha Stewart for being a cover girl at 81, others are calling foul because they feel that she doesn't represent the average woman. So Holly and I decided, hey, why not? Let's just dive into this conversation. So when it first started, I think I was clearly on the side of, hey, this is not cool.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I've changed my mind a bit.
Oh, really? I'm excited to hear this because we touched on this last week before we got on. And so I'm really curious to hear your change of mind or revision, so to say.
Okay, well, let's start with, where were you when this came out?
So interestingly enough, I'm still standing strong with where I was at. I send out weekly emails to my community. And at the end of the month, I do a more personal one, just sharing a little bit of stuff, trials and tribulations on my own end, but very much so relating to midlife women. In it, I brought up the hottest topic of the last week, the internet almost, busting at its seams because Martha Stewart at age 81 is on the cover of Sports Illustrated, and the difference of opinions were varied. And I got a lot of feedback from my community sending me emails over the weekend about their take. I had asked them, I'm like, what's your feelings about it? So in it, I share that I'm not, I have to just give this like little caveat. I'm not a fan of Martha Stewart. I never have been. So, and I think it's twofold. I think one, she just kind of rubs me the wrong way. I find her a little pretentious, but to be honest, I am also the last person who, like, her gig is not mine. I do not like to cook. I love to eat, but I do not like to cook. I love having a beautiful home, but it's like interior decorating. It's just not my jam. Like, it's not, I don't really get much from it. I admire people who, love the creativity part of it and find cooking relaxing. I just don't. So those two things come together. And so I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan. I think she looks great. I think she is the comeback queen. Let's face it, she came back from a lot of crap, tax evasion and all of that. And she's made herself over and over again. She deserves a lot of props in that sense. But I feel honestly, where it does a discredit is that it's not a realistic depiction of an 81-year-old woman, in the sense that it raises these unrealistic standards once again for women to be at this bar opposed to whatever bar they're at. I think, great, you feel good, but when Sports Illustrated is getting behind it, it gives you another message that's not necessarily welcoming in every, woman at different sizes, different colors of skin, different ages. It's not welcoming of that. It screams, I think, to me, privilege. So that's kind of where I stand with it. However, with that being said, I love that Sports Illustrated is putting an 81-year-old woman on their front cover instead of, a 20-something-year-old. So I think that is awesome. I think that gives me food for thought, like, are we moving forward a little bit here? I mean, the truth is, though, the Tesla's mom, what's her name? I can't even think of it. She was on Sports Illustrated the year before it. She was the first one who really hit, with Sports Illustrated welcomed in. But, so why does Martha get all the, I don't know, rave? I'm not sure. So that's kind of where I'm at. How about you?
I agree 100% with everything you said. That
Okay.
hasn't changed 100%.
Yeah.
I did kind of like Martha Stewart for a while. I was raised by a Martha Stewart type of person. And I think
Okay.
I liked her because I was trying to, learn from her so that I could be more like my mother, so that I could appease her more. So probably not the best reasons for I don't like really cooking. I like a nice house, but certainly not to the foo-foo level that, Martha Stewart puts together. All of those things. It's like you said, it's just not who I am.
Right.
When I said I've changed my mind, it wasn't because I was going over to the other side.
Okay.
I'm setting up a new camp.
Oh, I can't wait to hear this.
What do you expect? Let's just start here. Sports Illustrated swimsuit cover model. Have they not always projected an unrealistic image of women?
Yes.
So why would we expect anything different? If anything, I think it's even more manipulative what they've done. And they've even further compounded the unrealistic image that's put on women.
Yeah.
They've just found a new way to do it. They've just done it to, instead of the young women, now they're getting the midlife woman. Now they're getting the sort of the aging narrative. So
I think you've got a really valid point. Yeah.
I'm like, what did you actually expect? What did you actually expect? Of course, they're going to put Martha Stewart on there and how they're, going to portray her. But I did take a minute to go through, because it was through I think it was from a link on your newsletter that you sent out, that I went in and I started looking at some of these pictures. Now, my husband is a creative director in advertising. And he's the first to admit that every single photo ever out there that's publicly published has been altered.
Right.
There is no magazine cover without any sort of photo editing on it.
Right.
So yeah, you know what? She's going to be edited in some way. But also when you look at the images, they've conveniently positioned her to disguise certain things. First of all, she's wearing a ruched bathing suit. That's where it's all kind of like gathered looking.
Yeah.
We know that's a good way to hide the belly. Right. And there's pictures where, she's leaning all the way forward and she's twisting all the way over. So yeah, any good photographer knows how to maneuver the body so that you're always getting the best image. She also had scores of makeup artists, fashion designers, hairstylists, whatever she needed to look absolutely perfect in that moment. It is an unrealistic image of women, but it always has been. That has not changed.
Yeah.
And that's why it's just like, I'm sitting in the camp of, well, what do you actually expect?
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. Now, what has really changed? What really has changed?
And if anybody else was on the cover, I probably wouldn't have paid attention. But how much conversation did they create simply by being controversial with who they had?
Yeah.
There's no good or bad publicity. It always sells.
No, that's for sure. And they are well-intentioned. I'm sure they were behind it. But you make a valid point, and that kind of leads us down the lane of what really has changed and what hasn't, because, I mean, listen, maybe because I'm surrounded by it, because I'm a firm believer, if I surround myself among people who are aging powerfully, and I don't mean perfectly, I said powerfully, that, then it inspires me and I learn from others, right? So you have these celebrities who are in the limelight, like Jamie Lee Curtis, who, you know, doesn't touch her face, and you know, I'm just, you know, other names.
I
you know,
made a quick list
yeah,
before we
there's
did.
so many, and it's
Yeah, I
beautiful.
mean, just look at, you know, Sarah Jessica
Yes,
Parker, Andy
yes,
McDowell, Meryl Streep, Kate Winslet, Julianne
yep,
Moore,
yep.
Diane Keaton, and Judi Dench. I also have, I'm going to hold one name until the end because there's something more I want to share on that person. But there's one person that I really think has championed women.
Yeah. So it's happening. I really, it's happening. And this is obviously the industry that we're in, because we're all about changing the narrative here with midlife women and supporting and helping women do that. So we're around that and we see more exposure to that. But I do think there is more exposure to that more than ever. You know, you do have Dove trying to welcome in, you know, at advertisements of women, again, all color, shapes, and sizes. You know, you're seeing that. It's not in droves, but you're seeing that more. So, you know, how much is changing? I think we're just in the beginning stages of it all. It's just, we're just
We're just scratching
starting
the
to
surface.
shine a light on it
Yeah.
now, and it's all in its very new phases. You know, you mentioned Sarah Jessica Parker. I'm a fan of the show Sex and the City. You know, they did that reboot. I know it didn't do that well, but I enjoyed it. It made me think, it was very funny. You know, someone had made a point to me that if you looked at remember the sitcom, The Golden Girls?
Yes.
So those were women in their midlife. I think as young
I
as
know.
47 to 57, except for, of course, the eldest one who was in the 80s. Now, you look at the women in Sex and the City reboot and midlife, and they're all midlife women in the same ages, if not older. We got totally different representation. So, you know, it's there. It's happening. It's happening. But it's wild. It's wild to see the disparity.
It is. And one of the things that I noticed when I would see a conversation online around, you know, whether people are pro or against the whole Martha thing.
Yeah.
Women were calling for change. And I think this was part of the conversation we had last week after we've recorded our last week's show. And I said to you about, I was going to do a TikTok about it.
Yeah,
so I did do the TikTok, and I basically said, yeah, okay, we want to change the narrative. But again, what do we expect? Why are we expecting these big companies to change the narrative for us? Whose permission are we waiting for? If we want to change the narrative, this is our opportunity to change the narrative by putting our images out there. Look, I'm 200 plus pounds now. Certainly well above where I was when I was in my 30s and I was my fittest, and I probably weighed in at 130. Is it hard accepting my body today? Yes. Do I have a hell of a lot more jiggly spots than I did before? Absolutely. Yeah. Do I have a battle with the mirror when I look below, you know, my chin? Yeah, I do. But I think that's the mistake that we're making, is we're hiding from it.
You know, what's the unfortunate part is that I think that almost, maybe I can't speak for every woman, but I think that's a very common thing that women feel. It doesn't matter whether they feel, you know, they're thin or they're, at the age of 40, or at the age of 50 or 60. I think so many women, you know, really, unfortunately, because of how we were socialized, beauty was what we were revered for mostly, you know, and whose definition of beauty are we even talking about, right? But of what the media normalizes, maybe, I guess that's really what it came from. But who really makes that decision? But I think that every woman, maybe not every, but every woman can relate to that. Lucy, I really do. I know I can relate to that. You know, I was just having a conversation with my husband. He was commenting about his own elasticity, whatever. He was showing something about it on his arm. And I'm like, you know, I know. I'm like, and I'm a big fitness, kind of person. I love to work out, and I keep myself fairly in shape and thin. It doesn't matter, Lucy. Lucy, the skin is loose. It's loose. There is nothing. I mean, maybe if I got a nip tuck, yes, then of course, but no, the elasticity in my skin is no longer there, or it's going. I can't do anything to prevent that. I can't prevent the turkey neck or this. Yeah. Or I call it
like, what is this bit?
Oh my, please. And what I call it the puppet. This thing is like, I feel like a puppet because it's so like indented.
Oh, okay.
You know, the lines
the line
here.
that by your mouth. Yeah.
If I decided to get my facelift or some Botox, and I'm not saying anything against that. I'm a big baby when it comes to surgery. I don't like being like in pain of any sort. So I'm a wimp when it comes to that. And again, if that's the lane you want to go to, but no, I'm not liking this either. But at the same time, you said something that actually triggered me, which is something that recently shifted in me recently. What was, you just said it, you said about, it's up to us to make that change, that narrative. And you are spot on. So rather than being self-conscious when I go out without makeup on, or being self-conscious just because I'm maybe in a room of younger people, I decided to say to myself, you know what? Fuck this. These are badges of honor. I've birthed 2 children. You better believe my skin is not tight like it used to be. I am 54 years old. I was of the generation where we laid in the sun endlessly and burned and torched our skin. But these are badges of honor. And I have so much to give. And you know that when you feel beautiful inside, that's what you radiate. That's just what you radiate. I'm not everyone's, I'm not maybe everyone's definition, but I determine that. Just like you said, I determine it. And that's it. And when I determine it, that's all that matters, because that's all that's around me. So who cares what anyone else's opinion is of you? What is that quote they say? It's not my business what other people think about me.
Ride.
I remember one of the darkest days of my life, the day I hit rock bottom. When I went searching for answers on how to get myself out of that dark place, I discovered journaling. But when I tried to put pen to paper, I didn't know where to start. I had no guide or method to help me express what I was feeling. The only thing that I had was the blank page of my journal staring back at me. It took me years to figure out the proper journaling method so that I could understand who I was, what I wanted, how I thought, and how I felt. That is why I've taken everything that I've learned and turned it into a guide that will not only help you start your journaling journey, but will also help you start each day with purpose and gratitude. This guide is filled with growth tools, personal resources, and guided journal entries that will help you understand who you are, what you want, what you're thinking, and what you're feeling. You can find your journaling journey, your guide to starting each day with purpose and gratitude, on Amazon, and check out the show notes for links. Order your journaling journey today and discover your true self.
Ride.
Yeah, your
Something
opinion
like
is
that.
just that. It's your opinion. I don't base my life on it. And the
Yeah.
way I look at it is, I've been married for just about 29 years now. I've been with my husband since I was 18. Does he still think I'm hot? We still getting it on? I'm good. Like, really, why should I care? Do my kids care? Do my kids care if I'm 200 pounds or 150 pounds?
I don't think so. I'd be
No, they
shocked.
don't.
No,
They don't.
No,
They don't care.
And does
So-
anyone else, though? Does anyone else, Lucy?
But why should we care?
Well,
there are
because
people,
I
you know
think
what?
that it's people, when people are judging, they say it's a projection of their own insecurities.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's a fact. Even when if you find yourself judging, I right away turn inward and say, Holly, what's your deal with this? That you're judging it all of a sudden.
Yeah.
I have, and I'll give you an example, not to go off topic, but I have a dear friend of mine, or was a former dear friend of mine. We're not as close anymore. And she is very comfortable, not working anymore, and just enjoying the latter part of her life, and I found myself judging it. And you know why? Because I have an issue with it, because I have an issue of needing to be productive, needing to accomplish something. Like, that's part of my validation. That's my MO. That doesn't, so if she's good with that, kudos to her. That's her life. But I found myself judging it out loud, and just being like, oh, that's nice, white privilege, white privilege. But who am I to say that? Who am I to say that? That if she's okay with that, that's good for her. But I obviously have an issue with it because of my own insecurity with the fact of I couldn't even imagine how internally that would make me feel if I did not have, something to put myself into other than just myself in that sense. But hey, if you can do it and you feel good, right? So I think you're right. It's up to us. It is up to us to stand up and, and draw the line in the sand.
Yeah, and that's it. And I sort of concluded the video by saying, look, let's start to fill social media with our truth pictures. Share your truth. And I held up my arm and I gave it a good old jiggle. Because there's a lot there to jiggle.
Was that? You put so much good stuff out there. I needed to see it.
Well, I'll put the link wherever this video is. I'll see if I can put the link to TikTok
there. Do that, please.
And I think I have it coming out my next newsletter as well. And I actually challenge women to either stitch or duet it, just to sort of show, let's start doing it. The video last time I checked had about 400 views, but I hadn't seen anything about anybody sort of latching on to it. But that's what I'm calling women to do.
Yeah.
Is just to share these truths, because, for every woman that is confidently standing in who they are in midlife, there's thousands back there standing who aren't. And I think this is a time where we sort of come together in our sisterhood and say, hey, we're all good the way we are. If you're not going to like me because of my weight, well, okay, I don't care, because you know what? I give people enough reasons not to like me sometimes with my opinions and stuff. The least of my worries should be if somebody is disliking me because of my weight. I share my thoughts. I speak directly to people. I don't sugarcoat things. And that pisses a lot of people off. But you know what? I'm probably going to piss you off more with something I say than by how I look.
I would much I could stand in that. I can get behind something like that more than like you said, disliking someone for their appearance. It must be nice, from those bleachers looking down at everybody else. I mean, it's kind of comical, that but it's not only comical, it's a sad state of affairs, because I think this is how women, have been objectified and, seen to be, look how we're supposed to be we're supposed to look great. We're supposed to look like we're also revered for being great multitaskers. You know where that got us? Burnt out. Okay.
One didn't help.
We're revered for being great multitaskers. And now they're telling you, it's really important to be present in the moment. Well, that's funny, because all these years you're telling me that I should be juggling 5,000 balls at once. And now you want me to be present in my moment. Well, that's yeah, sure. We got the short end of the stick here, people. Between being, seen and only looked upon or as our beauty, or that was really what was front and center mostly. And anyone who maybe didn't follow that mold was, they were more someone on the outs, or someone who was, was, not a part of the norm and was making a stand. And also, like I said, well, spoon fed, we should do it all, multitask. Don't worry about yourself. You'll figure it all out. Not so much.
No, I mean, we're certainly the product of a lot of bad advice that was given to women. We were led down that certain path, the product of the 80s, where we were told that we could have it all.
That's right.
be a wife, be a mother, have a career, do all of these things. But that very quickly changed into, well, you had to be all, and then you were judged for not doing that.
That's right.
And then now we're hitting midlife. We are sick, we are tired, we are burned out, and now we're being judged because of all the other things you put upon us has brought us to this point. It's like, you just want to say, fuck off.
And some of this is just so programmed in us too.
Yeah.
So like when we're trying to make decisions for ourselves as we move into the second half of our life, it gets complicated because you're not really sure, like, is this just calling on past patterns that just aren't serving me anymore? Or is it something like that I validly, want in for my life? And that's why a lot of women, come to me in coaching, because they're in that in between. What do I really want now? Is it, my old patterns that I'm just playing off of? How can I create a deeper, richer, fuller adult life than I had in the past? And it takes some peeling back of layers. It really does. And being introspective. Self-awareness is going to be huge. And, and going deep and having these conversations. This is where you start to figure it all out.
And I think that's an opportunity that's created for those of us midlife women that were mothers, is that now that we have this time as our children are moving on with their lives, that excess of time can be scary. But I think that time should be filled with dealing with all of these things, all of this baggage that we've gathered up over the years, and just finally do away with it.
Yeah.
This is what it's meant to do for this generation of midlife women. I don't know what it's going to be like in 10 years for midlife women, 10, 20 years. I can only deal with what's here and now. Now, earlier we were talking about, some of those celebrity women.
Yes.
That have really sort of changed the narrative. And there's one celebrity woman that I would really like to highlight.
Okay.
Emma Thompson.
Okay.
She's a British actress.
Yes.
And the reason why I want to highlight Emma Thompson.
Oh, she did that movie.
She did Good Luck to You, Leo Grant.
Yes. Yes.
And I remember watching that movie. She first walks in as a bit of a dowdy widower. I think she was supposed to be in her early 60s, late 50s, early 60s, maybe.
Yes. Yes.
And if you haven't seen the movie, I don't want to give too much away, but if you haven't seen the movie, is she basically hires a male prostitute because she never had a satisfying sexual life while her husband was alive.
Yeah.
She shows it all.
She said that was, I remember her, like, because I brought this up in an email as well. And she said it was one of the scariest yet liberating moments in her life, to do that. She said, obviously so many eyes and cameras are on you when you're actually doing it. But, she's never walked around herself ever feeling comfortable in her own body. So to do it was just a very powerful, powerful scene for her.
It was. And I can relate to that in a sense, because I think it was definitely before COVID. So maybe about 4 years ago, I won a prize for like a boudoir photo shoot.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's great.
I decided to take it to a next level.
What'd you do?
I wore nothing.
You did?
I did. And originally I was just going to go and do it and then show my pictures afterwards, but trying to get a way to do it wasn't going to work. So I had to confess to my husband.
Yeah.
And and it's probably going to sound a bit whatever. He goes, well, can I come and watch? I'm like, what? He goes, I want to watch. And he said something about, because I see your beauty every day, I want you to see it.
Yeah.
And so I asked the photographer, she's like, he can be there. He just can't interfere or tell. And I'm like, no, he's just going to watch. And at the end of the photo shoot, because I am a plus size girl, when I went back to look at the pictures, the photographer said, can I use these in my promotion? And I said, yes.
Yeah.
And she shared those pictures on social media. And then I shared the pictures on social media.
That's fantastic. That's really fantastic. I applaud you for that. I did one of those shoots as well. I was not completely naked. And it was it was a surprise anniversary gift for my husband. So he didn't even know he was getting it. And I have to tell you, it was really a very powerful experience. It took me a while to warm up to the camera, to not feel self-conscious. I'm one of the least photogenic human beings in the world, and I own that. I'm just not a photogenic person, so I couldn't even imagine how this was going to come out. But I would do it again in a heartbeat. I would do it again in a heartbeat.
Yeah,
It
I
was
would,
a
I
lot
would
of
too.
fun.
I think I can't even remember which picture it was. There may have been a slight silk scarf or something, but
Right.
for the most part, no, you could see how big my thigh was. Absolutely.
It's amazing.
So
Good for you.
I,
Did you love it? Did you love it? Did you think it was so like,
oh, I certainly understand what Emma Thompson was saying when it was scary yet
yeah,
empowering.
yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah, sure.
It was even scarier sitting there having typed the social media post about to hit share. I think that was probably the scariest moment.
What was the feedback?
Um, it was all good.
Yeah.
I mean, and what, honestly, at that point in time, if you've got something negative to say, because I posted, a very tasteful nude picture of myself,
Sure, sure.
all I'm going to say is, okay, post yours. And this goes back to, I don't remember the exact quote that Brene Brown says, but it's like, if you're not in the arena, then your opinion doesn't matter.
Yeah, very true. Very, very true. Very true. Yeah. And how long ago were the photos taken?
It was 4 or 5 years ago.
It was a while ago, right? You said before
Yeah, so
COVID.
I was still 200 plus pounds.
Yeah.
I
So
still had,
is that part of your, I remember last week we talked about like, midlife being almost like a do-over. Was that all a part of, because you've done some pretty deep work, Lucy. You've done, listen, I didn't even know about the photos, but you've done a lot of journaling. You've done a lot of exploring your own self. You've shared very openly about, how you struggled and got out on the other side of it. Was that all a part of it?
it had to have been.
It must have been.
I did, I won it. I don't know if I would have chosen and paid and gone out for it, because it didn't really cross my mind. But I was at an auction and it was there, so I bid on it. So it wasn't free, because I still had to pay for the auction's item. But yeah, it was obviously all part of that journey, and it was sort of like a liberation.
Yeah.
It certainly helped me become more comfortable with my body. But as I said, I'm human like the next person. I'm still gonna have my ups and downs when it comes to it, for sure.
Of course. And I think maybe that's just, and I think we talked about this a little bit in the podcast when I was a guest. It's kind of leaning into the discomfort rather than forcing it away or, minimizing it. It's just kind of leaning into it, and recognizing it, seeing it for what it is, what it causes, that uncomfortable feeling, and then moving on, because that's more realistic. That we're not going to love every aspect of ourselves, but that's the human experience. And rather than pretending otherwise, it's a lot less energy, to try to, pretend that that's not the case or cover it in any shape or form. So, and I think that's all a part of it. When I start to get self-conscious about something because of a physical appearance, I'm like, no, Holly, if you're good, you got to walk the talk. You're telling all these women about how they need to stand up bravely for themselves. You've got to walk the talk. And that's, and I don't want to be, a hypocrite. That's for shit sure.
But it's also, I think that in itself drives me in finding my own courage, is because I am out here talking about these things. And I think I can find courage in, like you said, having that ownership with it because of the audience, because of who we're speaking to. It's like, if we're not if we're not doing it, if we can't be that, that first person to step forward and start working on changing this narrative, then why should anybody listen to me about anything?
I agree. And I think, the other factor, and it's a very real factor, and, is that because we're in the second half of our life, depending on where we're at, a lot of, decades are behind us, and time is precious. Life is precious, right? I know at this point of my life, I don't want to be on my deathbed or in my 80s thinking what I would have liked to have done or how I would have liked to have felt. I already spent, last 40 years doing a whole lot of shooting on myself, so I'm kind of like at this point where like, it's really up to me. Like, I don't want to be on my deathbed saying, I wish I did that, or I wish I felt this way. I've got to start making it happen. It kind of just goes to, if not now, when? When are you going to do it? Because I mean, listen, of course, life is precious even when you're younger, but there is something, I mean, I have to say, my clients, it's in our face. We know that we don't have necessarily a whole life ahead of us, a lifetime ahead of us. And we've learned that, the other way we went about doing it didn't necessarily, fill us up that much anyway. So with all that knowledge, how can I start filling myself up, and shed the shame and all of that, and move into my life just feeling happier and more comfortable in my own skin, literally and figuratively, in both capacities. So I think that's also the advantage in midlife. Like, because, I can't say that to my 20-year-old daughter because she's not really getting it. But I can say that to a fellow midlifer and they'll get it. They'll get it.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So I want to put the call out to, any woman listening or watching this episode with Holly today. Share your thoughts with us. In some way, reach out to us, because we want to grow this conversation, whether it's about, aging gracefully in our own body image, or, other ups and downs that we go through in midlife. Just reach out to us and let's start the conversation. Who knows? Maybe we can have this conversation with 5 or 6, maybe 10 women next time.
Amazing.
It's if we want that change out there representing the midlife woman, then let's just do it for ourselves. Let's stop waiting for permission and let's find a way to change it so that then they have to pay attention. Women have done this generation after generation. We didn't like what was going on. We stood up, we said something about it, and then things changed. Well, maybe this is our battle now. Maybe this is what we're, supposed to champion in our midlife years. Us Gen Xers. Let's change the narrative.
Yes.
So wherever you're listening or watching, please leave a comment, like, share. Make sure you share this with your midlife friends. And let's see where the conversation can take us.
Yep. Sure.
Until next
again, right? Next Tuesday.
Don't say see you next Tuesday. Until next time, have a great week, everyone. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Roller Coaster Podcast. Want to chat or share your ideas about today's show? Pop me an email at hello@therollercoasterpodcast.com. Don't forget to connect with me on Facebook and Instagram at The Roller Coaster Podcast. Our theme song, Roller Coaster, was performed by The Lucky Setback. Audio editing by the one and only Jeff Quigley of Quigley Creative.
Life is like a roller coaster, baby, baby. I wanna ride, 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 ride. Life is like a roller coaster, baby, baby. I wanna ride, 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 ride. Roller coaster.